What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another chapter of Shaolin Monks Part 2. Last time, we just saw Kung Lao rescue a woman named Aiko Krackle, and Kung Lao just abruptly noticed that he wasn't in China anymore, but he believes he might be somewhere in the United States, particularly New Jersey. And he just found out about the champion's curse, the champion's eternal curse, in which Kung Lao and Liu Kang have because they defeated Kahn in the second tournament. And this was the same fate in which the great Kung Lao suffered from. So, the two monks are actually sharing their ancestors' fate from 500 years ago. And needless to say, Raiden didn't tell them about it. And Kung Lao was devastated, and so he wandered away from the academy, and thus found Aiko, who was under distress by an assaulter. So, they both seem to be lost. So without further ado, let's get this thing going. Alright, hold on. Alright, Chapter 2. Enter Aiko. I hope the first continuity was satisfying and entertaining enough. Seriously, exploring the Mortal Kombat lore is a challenge, and it's like playing with fire here. Anyway, enter my OC Aiko, originally named as Krackle when I was a kid. Although, the concept of her may be tricky, but even though it's set in the classic timeline, there will be some elements from the alternate timeline, even though I hate it so much. Which I do. I hate the NetherRealm games. So, here goes. Kung Lao couldn't believe he was suddenly transported to a distant region so fast, let alone so subtly. He would have noticed himself going in through a portal, as it felt like the body was having contact with electricity while the radical energy made hairs on his neck stand up. Then he would be tossed off his feet as the vortex lifted him like a tornado, nearly like how enemies or opponents would make contact with his own whirlwind kick. Well, actually, it's tornado kick. He must have been in such a stupor he never noticed. How did Raiden send me here? Let alone a region far from the Wuxi Academy. Aiko noticed his blank stare. Kung Lao? He turned to her, and somehow his mind felt a tug of sorts, like a rod suddenly catching a fish. Aiko. Something seems so familiar. She lowered her eyes. Whatever it is, her predicament won't be so easy to explain. Kung Lao, I remembered you several years ago. You look so much different than you used to. Like how I saw you for the first time. Then I hardly saw you and your comrades again. I don't understand. You've known me from several years ago? Lousy scrolls. Yeah. Aiko was trying to reorganize her thoughts to make her statement clearer. I'm not from around here. I felt like I traveled back through time. The streets in these places weren't the same. You see, I was at first being hunted down by hordes of revenants, who looked like the combatants I knew from long ago. Only, they were undead, including you. I was at a loss for words. He put it to himself in disbelief. Me? What are you talking about? I must have died and got reanimated somewhat. I was on the run a lot, moving from place to place. I was with a group of disabled refugees who also lost loved ones from the endless invasions. It was very scary. Chill ran down her spine, making her shiver. She eventually recovered. I woke up one night, and I somehow wound up here. I remembered you and your comrades even before you were all zombified. Lao thought she was making a little bit of sense, though he'd never imagined him and his friends decayed, and always having a lust for killing. You said you knew us. From the 2 tournaments? Yeah. Again, Aiko was trying to recollect her thoughts. She always hated when her brain processed things slowly. I once helped you guys out, as Shao Kahn was damaging the Earth's dimensional fabric. I've only seen you before that time. Shao Kahn? Liu Kang and I decimated him in Outworld. You're not making any sense. He was defeated, but somehow he was revived, as was Shang Tsung. Visions of dealing with the elemental orb from the sorcerer flashed through her mind. The last time I saw you guys was when you recruited some bird named Asgard. Actually, it's Asgarth. I spelt it wrong, sorry. And the Shao Kahn was at war with the Centaurs when Kahn retreated. Though Kitana's plan fell apart on taking the throne, I hadn't seen you all after that. This was incredibly suspicious. The Shao Kahn? The Centaurs? At least you knew the Princess of Edenia. Kitana? You knew her? Indeed. She was with Liu Kang, Sonya, Jack, Stryker, Raiden, Nightwolf, and Sub-Zero. If I'm correct, and I believe the war is still going on. In case you don't know, it's from Defenders of the Realm. Lao was starting to be slightly intrigued. Aiko, where are they? If you went back in time, maybe we can still find them? She hesitated, trying to recollect how she wound up with them. She remembered being taken in as several cybernetic warriors attacked. Then they were hiding in a secret alcove. Lao noticed her struggling. She began to moan in irritation as she squeezed her eyes shut. She was trying to voluntarily make memories appear in her brain. Aiko? Her hands dropped from her head. I can't explain. It's been too long. How long has it been? About 16 years. Needless to say, this shocked him. Aiko. I need to find someplace safe. This place is dangerous. She never wanted to be mangled by a random sexual predator again. Kung Lao looked around frantically for some kind of shelter. Then his eyes came across a bright light. He realized it was one of those shrines he saw a few weeks earlier throughout the Wuxi Academy, Shang Tsung's island, even Outworld. He then turned to his new ally. I think I know somewhere where we can go. Come. He brushed a hand and she followed. About a yard away, the light shrine was in clear sight, within a small cove, a few feet above the streets. Lao signaled Aiko to hold on to his shoulders again, then he theorized he can make it up there before he teleported in a blue dust. Fortunately, it was just enough distance. Using his hat, he made a few sparks of the rock statue, which made a small flame to the small abandoned group of dried-up twigs below. He figured they'd be safe for the moment, at least until the next day. It may seem like malarkey, but Kung Lao was starting to believe what Aiko was saying. Still, he couldn't understand how nor why he wound up in Jersey, a land far away from his home. Yet, somehow she may be the key to finding out his comrades again, and maybe tell them about his and Liu's curse. As they settled down, Lao learned that Aiko knew him and the others since she was 6 years old, though she wasn't involved with them till a few months later. She even called Kung Lao a cowboy based on the way he looked. And as stated earlier, he became pretty bashful at the thought, figuring it was his hat that made her interpret this awkward classification. Fatigued, he decided that both of them should get some shut-eye. Maybe this way, Aiko would be more focused and logical of what's going on. It was the fact that Shao Kahn still lives, and his friends were involved again that compelled him to keep going. After several hours, the sun peeked from the clouds, making its light wake up the duo. Luckily, as he prepared to leave the academy, he packed up a few sundries. Case in point, Lao had a kettle of fresh green tea. Aiko was fascinated by the exotic taste, and he figured they needed the caffeine kick. He knew that while they needed it to increase their energy, they didn't need a lot of the fattening sugar. Aiko was impressed as how prestigious the Shaolin Monks were. Lao and us Shaolin Monks must be in the topmost condition. We are the bringers of enlightenment, and it is vital we shall protect Earthrealm from evil forces, both foreign and domestic. I am, in fact, a descendant of the great Kung Lao, the very first champion of Mortal Kombat. Sounds like they are like the Chinese equivalent to the US military, always going through tumultuous and rigorous training, always needing to be the best warriors to protect your land. Yes, that is our primary function. Aiko couldn't imagine always being in such harsh conditions like going through boot camp and such, and the pressures upholding law and order as well as his promising legacy. Man, must have been hard to uphold these duties, being the Chinese's best and the world's strongest. It's almost like a mix between training for the Olympics and becoming a high-ranking soldier of sorts. At least we don't tend to be as headstrong as Sonya Blade is. That name tugged memories in Aiko's mind. At least we are a peace-loving kind. We don't always tend to jump to violence, unless it is absolutely necessary. That's a relief. At least you weren't like those other guys. Those outside the academy. You guys seem to be a diamond in the rough. That's a nice basic way of summarizing us. He questioned her what she meant on being different. Because you weren't like the other Chinese. They are... how should I say this? Militaristic, warmongering, aggressive. Kung Lao was surprised. Where'd you hear that? I've heard so much about your own kind. They're communists, and very close allies to Russia. They seem contrary to you guys. No offense. Always working them to the bone, seemingly violent, cold and bitter, like war machines. I see. I guess us monks are more benevolent compared to the outside world. As a sort of beacon. They seem to be totalitarian at times, but in all fairness, we have worse. Like Russia and especially North Korea. He paused for a bit, waiting for Aiko to process the intel. But yes, us monks unfortunately seem to be more specific than they are. You got me there. That is why we must always be on our guard. Somehow Aiko felt more comfortable around him. At least he understood how his people tend to operate contrary to tyrants or belligerent individuals. And what if their, urges? Remembering their age of consent, he wasn't taken aback by this, especially since 98% of the monks were male. No matter how tense the moment is, we never surrender to our biological urges. Us Shaolin monks must stand for a life of celibacy. Fornication is forbidden, as it is against the order of light. We must stay pure-hearted and refrain from our sudden setbacks. Unless we were to be wed, of course. That really calmed Aiko's nerves. Kung Lao definitely knew how to set someone at ease. Then he had an epiphany. Come with me. What? To the Wuxi Academy. I'll introduce you to the Shaolin and teach you our ways of life. Kung Lao, I don't know. I took a back paddle. Having someone from another time, let alone being in unfamiliar territory, may just be too much for her, let alone cause so much anxiety. My pardons. I shouldn't have made the offer. have my own inner demons to fight. I should never have involved you. Aiko said nothing. Still overwhelmed, Kung Lao? He heard a familiar voice from behind, yet as he turned, he saw his sensei before him. He was surprised he hadn't appeared with the usual crash of thunder nor flash of lightning. He immediately stood up and faced him. Master Raiden! I'm not sure of anything anymore. I'm still preoccupied of this eternal curse. But she says she knows you, me, our friends. She thinks she can help find them. Aiko! He turned and saw her. I hardly recognize you. You've grown so much. You both know each other? Indeed, she was basically the heart of our team, while we were hiding from Outworld's evil forces, as well as the invasion from other realms since the world's dimensional fabric became more fragile. Yes, Aiko was saying about something like this. And Shao Kahn, how did he survive after Liu Kang and I destroyed him? The Emperor has been revived somehow. I doubt this was the Elder God's doing. Perhaps someone from the Netherrealm was at foot, or maybe he'd escaped from the damned territory. I noticed that Scorpion was revived there, and I realized this after I fought him. He flashed back to the brutal battle with the vengeful ninja turned wraith. He nearly died there doing so. Again, from the Let's Play. If that's the case, then Kahn is more reckless than ever before, and I believe he has been regaining his lost strength from the last time you fought him. This must be why he was ruining Earthrealm and still is as we speak. How long has this been happening? For about 3 months now. I actually put you in a comatose state. Kung Lao just became dumbfounded, even Aiko. Raiden assured he was suffering from survivor's guilt and he wasn't ready to face the challenges ahead. No wonder the monk didn't notice anything changing and waking up in a foreign place. The cat really did get his tongue. I was surprised once I saw Aiko again after her younger self left us for good. And the reason being was she's too young and inexperienced. It was only right to send her away permanently and return to her home once Outworld became under an intense civil war between the Shao Kahn and the Centaurs. The Shokan race are Goro and Kentoro's kind, although the Draconian Prince is in constant conflict with the latter's breed being Targaryen. The Centaurs hate both factions as well. They are not peaceful tribes. I see. Lao couldn't help but feel sorry for them in a way, even though he faced off with 2 wrecking machines before. And what about her? Raiden stepped close to Aiko and knelt matching her height. She felt a bit intimidated by the ferocity of Raiden, but he laid an assuring hand on her. She used to be someone very special, and very rare in her abilities. Aiko, do you remember assisting us? Yes, sir, I do. I was like the heart of her team, as you said, the pacifier. Aside from Nightwolf, anyway. I used to make peace with you guys, trying to resolve as much stress and internal conflicts as possible. But I cannot fight. How can she be of use to us if she can't fight? Skills in combat isn't the only way to win victories. Us Shaolin monks are often required to be a part of the White Lotus Society, to be the topmost defenders of Earth. However, there are those who can't fend for themselves, but rather have excellent skills in managing conflicts without raising a hand. And that power comes from deep within the heart and mind. You mean like scholars? Damn. You mean like scholars? Raiden affirmed this. He then faced his young warrioress again. Aiko, Allow me to awaken your dormant strength. You would be of use to us, more than ever." Raiden laid a hand on her forehead and she felt numb as she closed her eyes. Moments later, her life flashed before her eyes. All those moments that happened in her own time and rewinding to when she was 6, assisting the warriors, mostly at the hidden base. Her eyes were rapidly moving faster than a hummingbird's wings, and she felt buzzes in her head, going down to her toes. She abruptly opened her eyes as if her body took a jolt after a nightmare, though it wasn't fright, but shock and awe. Her mind continued to buzz and fuzz as she touched her forehead, her scalp dry. "Do you remember us now, Aiko?" "Ah, yes. Yes, I do." Kung Lao walked to her. "Are you okay?" As he touched her, though, the contact made his palm take a shock. He shook his hand to rid the sudden sensation. Her powers still need to be unlocked and used in the most proper manner. Her abilities had laid dormant as she grew older. Maybe then she can still utilize them. "My powers? Do you feel any different?" Aside from the rumbling beneath her feet, she noticed her heart beginning to warm. "I think so. What do you mean by my powers, Raiden?" "That time will come, soon enough." He stood and turned to his promising disciple. "As for you, Kung Lao, you must protect her. You realized why I brought you here." "You found her, didn't you?" "I thought there was something familiar once I looked closely. She said she met me before the first 2 tournaments, and my comrades as well. Even I recognized her. Her younger self's still at home, so there's no chance on seeing her. But now she is older. She shall become one of us when the time is right." Kung Lao punched his other hand. "I must head back to where my friends were. She said they were hiding in some kind of cave." "This location was supposed to be desolate for us. No one was supposed to know of its whereabouts. Since Shao Kahn is still creating indirect conflicts onto Earth, I will take you to them. Come, it is time now." He hesitated for a moment after he told them to hold on. "Aiko, I remembered you are an astrophobic. Do not be alarmed on what I'm about to do." She gulped. "Oh." She reluctantly held on to Kung Lao for extra comfort. Soon enough, with a crack of thunder, the trio disappeared within a flash of light. They came to a rocky terrain complete with the tall, steep precipices and a portal at the rear of the large battleground. Through the clearing, he saw a group of cybernetic and saurian fighters. He followed the clatter of metal which was making deafening clangs, even those that seemed to irritate Aiko's ears. As he noticed her hands covering them, he saw the commotion and, to his surprise, he found him! Liu Kang! None of the heroes looked up as if they were almost being outnumbered. He ordered Aiko to stay put with Raiden while he spotted several different ledges protruding from the cliff walls. With careful precision, as well as using his teleport a few times, he was able to gain his footing. In a way, it was almost reminded the monk of the pit in Outworld where he first met up with Reptile. Despite the deja vu, he ended up a few feet away from the Saurian army. He had an uncanny idea as he tossed his razor-rimmed hat at a jagged rock wall. The large stones took a moment to collapse, but once they did, it caused another group of rocks to tumble and descend onto the unfortunate group below. "There's no way their lethal acid could penetrate through that!" Lao gloated to his damaging display as he was readjusting his hat, which came back to him like a boomerang. The other surviving saurians looked upon the sudden avalanche, and for once they were shaking in their boots. Lao then spotted a lone saurian without a mask as he saw his forked poisonous tongue dripping with acid and actually laying over and intimidating an ally he once knew. "Jax!" He saw him get spat on by the ninja's corrosive acid eating away his bionic arms. He was stunned by the attack. "He's not gonna make it!" Lao immediately jumped into the fray as he teleported downward to the open field. He then tossed his hat again, only this time it got the Saurian's attention when the brim knocked him from behind. He hissed and spotted the mysterious mortal a few feet away. He then turned to his attention while Sonya ran to treat Jax's wounds and dwindle the poison with leftover water from her canister. Much to his dismay, Kung Lao's mind flashed back to the acidic later and the deadly warrior deep within the living forest. "Reptile! I thought I killed you back in the living forest and stole your thunder by attaining your sete. So, you're the one who murdered my general. I'm Kombat, and you shall die insolently for that." Thankfully, there wasn't a slippery pool of minor acid slowly eating away his boots, but Kung Lao was ready to throw some punches. Utilized some of the same strategies he had with the deadly olive-green adversary, keeping his distance and dodging his forked tongue fresh with poison, like combating a lethal fritillance. He did take a few blows at times, even once when he made a contact with the acid, stunning him for another attack. Luckily, he was able to minimize the lethal sting as he tumbled when his face made contact with the dirt. They were both swift fighters, each one exchanging blows even from Kombat's slide. His energy projectiles and even sometimes grabbing Kung Lao by the neck with his retractable tongue. Luckily, Lao pulled off some tricks as well. He managed to toss Kombat over his shoulder once he got close enough to his body as he was being pulled. Another time, he was barely able to reach for his hat to slice it, but it was unsuccessful. He mostly relied on his wits, his hat, and even his tornado kick and teleport kicks to cover more ground. At times, like Reptile, Kombat was able to vanish with a poof, confusing the warrior. Unfortunately, his footsteps were minimized and hardly heard compared to the toxic pool. Kung Lao failed at a few attempts, however his crackerjack thinking led him to using his tornado to attack on all sides, even deflecting Kombat's acid. Eventually, Kung Lao's determination and resilience gave him the upper hand. Kombat was just as slick on his feet, but he didn't have as much stamina nor strategy as him. Eventually, he got all tired out, but Lao hammered him down to the hard, cruel terrain. He then threw his hat sideways, and it stayed put while it vertically spun so rapidly. Kung Lao grabbed and dragged the fatigued Kombat towards it, and Aiko immediately startled and turned away. Raiden came to her side as he had the nerve to witness Lao's signature razor edge. With the groin first, Kombat had officially died as his body split in two. Blood spewed all over the place, and by the time he was satisfied over the corpse, Lao retrieved his hat and shook any stray drips from his brim. He then made a fighting pose over his kill. "Hodo!" The other Saurians watched the fatality and dastardly ran to the portal yonder. Raiden shouted from the stone ledge to hurry and stop the fleeing soldiers. Kung Lao immediately went on the prowl, utilizing as many of his teleportation abilities, trying to keep up. As he gained a few feet, he stopped and propelled on the ground horizontally. His body kept on swirling, creating a large and vicious daredevil. The faster and stronger he rotated, the more destructive the tornado became, trapping the remaining Saurians just a few feet away from their retreat. Lao eventually dug his boots into the dirt and spread his arms out, tossing the helpless ninjas onto whatever protruding edge pierced through their bodies, while others dropped dead. The display was impressive to the other spectators, even Aiko and Raiden, whom the latter teleported her descent. The ferocity was too much for Kung Lao, however, as he suffered from the vertigo. A fellow monk ran to his side and laid a thermal hand on him to help calm the disorientation. His vision blurred, then he squeezed his eyes shut till he felt his head was clear enough. From the blur he saw sight for sore eyes, or at least that was how he felt. "Liu Kang! He nodded in affirmation and they both bowed to each other before they were reunited in their strong arms. They even patted each other on the backs a few times, despite them being sleek from sweat. They parted and Liu was the most cohesive. It's been too long, old friend. All Lao did was nod, and the other warriors gathered around them. He recognized almost everyone, even Katana and Sub-Zero. Long time no see. It is an honor to make your acquaintance again, Shaolin. The cryomancer bowed, remembering his assistance back in the Outworld Wastelands. Liu Kang pulled up slowly, and Lao was mingled with the fighters he hadn't seen in so long. He was even introduced to Curtis Stryker, who was still on duty as a riot control officer in New York, before he was summoned by Raiden. He broke through the crowd with Aiko by his side. Come, we have much to discuss. He then led them to the unique trio of dragon jets, large crimson aircraft shaped like serpentines, that were designed by Nightwolf as transportation to traverse through portals and protect the pilot and passengers from the radical energy. It was stated they can sometimes hold 2 people while occasionally shift to a 3-seater. Liu Kang and Katana took one with Kung Lao at the rear. Sonya and Jax took another with the latter riding it on account on his damaged metallic arms, and Stryker and Sub-Zero took the third, while Raiden teleported Aiko to the hidden layer as the jets submerged. And here are the songs for that. I think I did a decent job with Lao's major fight with Kombat. At first I got him confused since he looked so much like Reptile, even without the mask. If you guys remember the cartoon, you know who he is, as well as the dragon jets and the hero's hidden base. I know, the jets were just boys to sell toys, but I thought it was unique, as portals weren't the only way on traveling from place to place, so I figured they'd be useful to protect them from their radical energy, like sapping vitality from the Devil's Road in Final Fantasy IV. But damn, I wish the same ploy would have been used for F-Zero GP Legend. Battle itself was inspired by the boss fight in Shaolin Monks, as Lao faces off with Reptile in his lair. Kombat deserved to go since he remained MIA for so damn long. Like they say, take that, Scrappy. Also, I kinda see Kung Lao as resilient as Liu Kang, while also being cooler and more collected compared to Kang's ardency, and even utilizing some strategy whilst I see Liu going headfirst into battle. Lao does have more variety and seems to be more versatile. And yes, I classified Kung Lao as a shallow cowboy as I wasn't interested until Shaolin Monks. And it was very difficult including the OC I made a long time ago. She was 9, like me, when Defenders of the Realm took place, but instead of a few years, I decreased the time to a few months. Also, Chronica might have transported Aiko back since she did the same, driving the warriors forward in time as a one-way trip. So Kung Lao is finally reunited with his fellow warriors, and has once been added to the roster with Aiko. I bet he was cut out due to his graphic moves, much like Melina and her gruesome Turcotten fangs and lethal skills. So stay tuned for part 3. Until then, this is the Ekron Writer signing out, and stay tuned for the next chapter. Hopefully I'll get down to that.